Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nomad CEO Podcast. I'm Kenz, your host. And today, oh my gosh, you are going to love this conversation because this woman will change your life. Like she's going to flip on your head how you think about work, how you think about business, how you think about living your life, and how to navigate that dynamic of work and life. And so Lydia Lee, she is here. She's actually in Bali right now, which is one of my favorite places. So this is really cool. And she is a work reinvention coach and a tiny business strategist. So she is one of a kind, and she's worked in this for a long time. And she's a solopreneur strategist, and she has an organization called Screw the Cubicle, which love that name, where she's leading the tiny business revolution. She is challenging the bigger is better narrative in business. She helps solopreneurs build sustainable, profitable businesses that give them freedom instead of taking it away. So after experiencing her own burnout from building a successful but unsustainable business, Lydia discovered that there's a different way to create impact without sacrifice. So she developed the Tiny Business Method. It is a framework that helps professionals build intentionally small but mighty businesses aligned with their definition of enough. She's currently based in Bali, as I mentioned, and she runs her own tiny but mighty business, working 25 hours a week. You guys, 25 hours a week, while taking 6 to 8 weeks off annually for travel and family time. So she is living proof that you can be tiny but mighty, designing a business that's intentionally small but profitable. So through her YouTube channel, newsletter, and coaching programs, she shares frameworks, philosophies, and practical steps for building a business that feels like home. Also, she's a total badass because her work has been featured in Forbes, The Telegraph, CBC Radio, The Guardian, and Elle Magazine. So we are with a legend today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Lydia, to the show. Yay, I'm so glad you're here.
You make me look good, Kenzie.
Girl, and I could go on. Like, this is a summary of the legend that you are. Like, this is incredible. So,
Oh
thank
man,
you.
I wish we met when you were in Bali, because I know you took a little trip here not long ago. And I'm like, how cool would it have been if we were sitting beachside doing this right now? So we're gonna have to have a part two where we get to do that live.
Yes, I will. I'm booking a flight,
Yeah.
just so you know, because Bali is amazing. And the part that you're in, Ubud, and right around that area, right? Oh,
Yes.
there's just an energy to it that's just like you just feel calmer and peaceful, and like life makes sense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simple life, and I actually really Bali is such a great representation of that cozy container of a
Mhm.
home, right? That is, of course, every place has its pros and cons, right? There's parts of Bali that are getting busier and all those things, but luckily where I live is more north, a little further from the beaches and things like that. So it's still really lush, green, and nourishing with like tons of fruits and chickens around, and all the beautiful creatures of Bali. But it's still cozy, and I think I've always compared like what does that look like to match my business with where I'm living, that it actually doesn't have to be this glitzy, like big thing. And it can be that there are chickens running around, that the traffic jam is those ducks that are running out from the paddy fields in front of my scooter, and things are slower. Everything is just this slow living kind of energy,
Mhm.
which I've always appreciated and think about it a lot whenever I'm thinking of like, why am I not applying this to my business? Why should that be different than the way I want to live my normal life, right?
Oh man, that is so good. And it's actually so funny you mention that because I was so curious. One of my questions for you is, do you think you would have built the 25-hour a week schedule that you have with 6 to 8 weeks off the same way if you were, say, living in stateside or in another part of the world that didn't have that ambiance? Like, do you think that that still would have happened, or maybe it just would have been harder? What are your thoughts?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's a bit of yes and no. Like,
Mhm.
I've been in and out of Bali. I mean, Bali's been a base for almost 12 years, right? That's a long time. I'm from Vancouver originally, but I was born in Malaysia, also a little island called Penang. Best food, by the way, in Southeast Asia, if you've never been to Penang. But I've been in kind of different, big cities, small cities, etc. But to me, I have this funny story I talk about where it's like you can kind of like take the girl out of corporate, but like, and you can put her on an island But that girl could also still, like, for example, be corporate island,
Mm,
and it took me, like this tiny business philosophy. This is not something I did when I first started my business, not even the first like 8 years of my business, and like I certainly could be living in a slow living environment and still be in the mindset of doing more, showing up in ways that aren't quite in alignment with my values, but doing it anyway, because that's what the industry is doing, or that's what, I've learned from hustle culture, or even my own immigrant culture, right? Where the lessons I've learned as an immigrant child was like, you better work twice as hard as anyone else in that country to be seen, to be recognized, to be chosen. Those narratives can still follow you, even if you're in paradise, So I certainly did not, for example, come to Bali and go, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to change my life. No, no, no. I still did all the things I would have probably done if I was based in Vancouver, because that was still who I was, until I decided like this was not how I want to, I don't want to experience, like this is not giving me back what I originally did this for, right? It's very easy to, even when you are a successful entrepreneur, to keep that engine going, to keep revving. And that is not enough. Like, I certainly had an enoughness issue, with if I met my goals, if I had my highest revenue year, I didn't even pause to celebrate. I would just be like, okay, what's next? Or it also is the scarcity fear that I had, which was, oh, I better keep going and keep working harder before this is taken away from me. Or this was just luck. Or this was, like all those things that can happen. So I think Bali certainly supported me to at least give me that day-to-day look of seeing the Balinese move slowly, seeing that I can't, even if I try to rush shit here, it doesn't work. Nobody rushes to your speed, like it's not how we work in North America, where it's like the client's always the VIP. Like if they don't want to do something, or they can't do something, they won't, and that is like, it taught me to just be patient, taught me to move with more graciousness, and that slowing it down sometimes is a better move because it helps you to think more intentionally instead of, rushing into the next thing over and over and over again.
Oh man, that is so good. And it's so refreshing too to hear that that's not that like you had to unlearn the programming, the conditioning, the culture that you were in, the culture you were raised. I can only imagine, immigrant family as well coming. I mean, so much respect for that. And yeah, just the narrative that you grew up with to then get to a place where you then choose, I have lived by this story and I no longer am choosing that. It served a purpose,
Mm,
but I am consciously, intentionally changing the game for myself. And
yeah.
man, I feel like I'm in the in between right now of like building up and creating, and also let's slow down and like embrace where I'm at and like watch the sunrise and the sunset and, have an hour long chat with a local because I can, like whatever. Like it's so good. So I'm really curious, what does I have so many questions around this. What does a typical week look like now working 25 hours as an entrepreneur? And, when you wake up to when you go to bed, and then your yearly flow as well with the 6 to 8 weeks off.
Mm. It took a little while to get to this cadence, okay?
Mm,
Because I am a recovering type A, doer, right? Like for such a long time, my personality and my value was so attached to doing and
mm,
making things and creating things and making movement happen, And in a lot of ways, I'm still that girl. It's just not all the time, like
mm,
having that balance of when to activate that type A perfectionist attitude, which is so serving still and still beneficial, but
mm,
also that balance of being able to pause, being able to allow myself to recalibrate and rest, true rest, and not constantly be working, because it can be tempting to work when you're on the road a lot as well. Like I was a lot more as well when I first became more nomadic in 2012, right? It can be easy to not take time off when you travel because you're like, oh, whatever, my laptop's there, I must as well check some emails, or I'm on the plane, nothing's happening, so I better check my emails or do something, right? There's always this sort of temptation to do a lot of things when you don't have like an official office and you kind of work from anywhere, right?
yeah. Yes.
So when I first started the schedule, like all I need, what I originally sort of thought about was like, I don't want to keep working Monday to Friday, because that was sure that works, but also I felt that I was not taking advantage of the freedom that I originally created this business for, right? Which is more time, freedom, right? More time with family, friends, people that I care about, community, right? Things like that. Hobbies, right? That are beyond work, something, learning how to dance, learning how to do art, like walking my dog, whatever, right? It's the thing that is not business related. Those moments and those experiences were not like when I look at my calendar, it was filled with more work stuff, and I color code my calendar. So I damn know what is a work related thing versus what is a, fun thing, which is always yellow and orange. And there was like lacking the yellow and orange, right? And a lot of like, you can tell a lot from where you spend your time if you color code your calendar to event types. And then you start to see the lay of the land of like, where am I really spending my time? And so, in around like 2017, 2018, like I started to question a lot of this, like, I'm working a lot, I'm making a lot of money, I'm like launching 8 programs a year, I've like 5 retreats a year, all the things that you're supposed to do as a seasoned coach. But like I was more exhausted and not enjoying the money. And this money didn't exactly buy me, you can have money in the bank, but the only thing that's really the representation of your joy and your purpose and all the things is what you're actually experiencing as a human, right? So all of that didn't quite matter to me if that money and those accolades and those, all those successes didn't get me to a life experience I was proud of. And proud is a word that I used a lot. I didn't feel proud, even though I should have been with what was on paper, because the values I had of what made me feel proud was when I could have time to spend with the people I love, right? When I'm immersing in a creative activity that I'm really bad at, but doing it anyway because it's fun, and fun became a metric because fun was not there when I was working really, really hard, So now this like part of my weeks, what's a fun thing I have to commit to every week as part of going to work, And so as the years go by from 2017, 18 to now, there's been so many adjustments of my schedule, right? But the first one, like I said, is just not working straight Monday to Friday. So starting with just taking off Fridays every other week, not every week just yet, because I was a bit scared that people might like not be happy with me, because I still had a lot of people pleasing tendencies back in the day. And just to test things out and go, what would it feel like to just take 2 Fridays off, a month? And will my business blow up? Will my business actually self-implode if I did this? And of course it didn't, but in your head, you think it would, right? Because you do have those sort of fear-mongering critical mind, right? And so as that went by, what got better, then now it starts to be more towards like the current situation, which is Mondays off and Thursdays off. So I only do client work between Tuesdays and Thursdays. I only work until noon on those days. Now on Mondays, I'm still working, but I'm actually doing stuff for me and my business and what I need to do to think about my business. Because one of the things that I really felt that I wanted to do more of that so that I didn't get to a place in my business that I resented was that I needed to start being aware of what was happening, right? But if you're not doing that, if you only look under the hood when a crisis is happening, or you look under the hood when something's not working, it's too late, right? You're already in the mess of the drama, right? So the Mondays every week, right, is that little date with myself to have an analysis, an observation of my business. Like, hey, what's going on this week? What am I doing? Is this still in congruency with who I am and what I want to do? Or am I doing this because I have to do it? It's obligatory sort of energy. And where do I want to adjust those things? And also, what do I want to aim for? That might be something I want to learn or I want to take an initiative on that I wouldn't have time for it if I was constantly in client workload, right? So that is all about me. Mondays are selfish days. It's about me, my business, what I need from my business, and that planning day is so, so good to start the week that way for me. And then it's all about my clients. Tuesdays to Thursdays, I immerse there. I do a lot of one-on-ones. So it's very intimate, intensive, work that requires presence, requires depth, And then Fridays are what I call like funky Fridays. It's like that could be when I meet up with my own coach to do my own learning and mentorship. It could be that, I'm calling up, like you and I have spoken on, I think, a Friday of like, to know other. It's like, it's this sort of social, it's still like great for my business, but it's fun. It's, not work related all the time. And it allows me to sort of like have a long weekend even, right? That I needed it, right? And those little buffers from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, that's been a really nice hug, in both ends of beginning and start to a business feeling good before it enters the weekend and a business feeling good before it starts the week, right? Which is really nice. And then when it comes to the sort of, you mentioned 6 to 8 weeks off, right? This is sort of the aim of what I do to get full time off to travel to see my aunt who lives in Malaysia still, who's actually pretty much the lady who raised me when I was a kid.
Mm,
So she really is like a second mom, and she doesn't have any children. She's
mm,
93. She got diagnosed with cancer earlier last year. So I want to be there for her. I want to be moving to Penang, right? And being there seasonally for her, right? As her niece, right? And her as her soul kin in some way. And for me to do that, right? I tend to enjoy planning my time over the year in seasons, right? So there are moments in the year that my energy is really high, and then there's moments in the year where I want to be cozy, I want to hibernate, I need to plan, and then sometimes are family times, right, where it should be uninterrupted. And usually I
mm,
pick a season where it's a little slower for my business so that I can really immerse in being somewhere and not having to work as much, right? And those
mm,
seasons change. Like I kind of am more what I call like a seasonal entrepreneur, where it's like there's moments where I'm sprinting. I like a sprint, but
mm,
not 365 days a year. It's
mm,
intentional of when that is based on my energy levels, based on my capacity and my priorities. And then there's different seasons that I literally am just Marie Kondoing my business. I'm hibernating like a grizzly bear, and cleaning my business up, cleaning all the little things to enjoy it more, right? Like if it wasn't filled with a bunch of crappy, obligations that I gave myself, things like that.
mm. Oh, what an inspiration. I like, just so you know, this conversation is like feeding my soul already. Like, and that's how it felt when we first spoke. It just, I major kudos to you, Lydia, because especially if people are listening, to this podcast in North America or different parts of the world where the hustle culture is very praised. And, I would say someone that is listening to a podcast typically is they're developing themselves outside of their profession because they want to be better. Like that's just commonality. I'm kind of being stereotypical here, but to hear someone like you that knows what that's like, and yet you've given yourself permission to chart a new course and to hear what that, like, the evolution of it is really refreshing. So I just love it so much. It's so, I just have to say, and I have to say this too, when little backstory. So when Lydia and I first met virtually, I was, oh my gosh, where was I?
Uber.
Yeah, I was in an Uber. It was
Or you
like,
were like taking, I think like a midnight train. I remember it being like 2 a.m. It was crazy. I was like, what time is it over there in
yeah.
France?
Yeah, it was, yes, it was. So like I won't get into the whole story, but basically I was going from Paris to the south of France and I put my bag on the wrong part of a train and the train split. So I had to go hunt down my bag and it was like middle of the night and I was supposed to be my Airbnb, chat with Lydia, all cozy, and I was in an Uber. It was chaotic. But I say all that because I felt so bad. It was like, girl, I look like a hot mess and this is a hot mess moment. I still have them. But you were like, I get it. You're like, girl, I get it.
I've been there.
I've been there, you're like, I've had so many times I've called clients and trying to connect to Wi-Fi or calling cards, whatever. And
Yes.
I say that because like I love what you're doing now because you've walked it and now you're living on the other side and it's just so intentional. So anyways, it's just so cool. I love it. And I'm curious too, it's helpful too of like thinking, okay, I'm just not going to work. I'm going to have the cushions to your week, right? Mondays and Fridays. What are other things that you have found you needed to stop doing to create that freedom, whether it was systems in your business or programs that you had or identity, like mindsets, right? So what does that look like for you?
Well, the first thing is not to be launching 8 things a year, right? Like that, like
Noted. Yeah.
it's like when you actually know me in real life, like this is why that identity crisis is real, right? Because who you are in real life when it's nothing to do with business, it's like potentially your truest self, right? You're like, okay, this is how I work, this is how I meet friends, here's how I talk, here's what means something to me. And in my regular life, I am a minimalist. You know what I mean? Like I can travel on a carry-on to 3 different continents, winter, fall, summer, it doesn't matter. I can fit everything in one tiny suitcase and be fine. But
Mm,
in my business at the time, before I made the pivot, it's like I was a maximalist. It was like doing all the things, because that was not something I questioned. That business felt like it had to be that way. It's not an extension of who I am. It is what the industry needs from me. It's what other coaches were doing. It's what the badge of honor of what a successful coaching practice looks like,
mm,
And so when I had the big team, when I had the 8 offers a year, when I had those retreats and all those different things, and being on every single marketing platform there is, out there, that felt like a full practice, right? And that was the first thing I needed to question and understand was that, is that version of success, right? That version of revenue, the right version for me, right? I love money. I love making money, but what is enough? Because what currency that I also value, and it is money, but it's also time. It is also other metrics that allow me to feel like my business feels successful. Even little things like working with clients I actually like, that I can't wait to work with. Sounds so simple, but how many times have we been in multiple moments in our business where we might have taken on a client that we're like, I had that gut feeling, feeling we weren't the right match, and we shouldn't keep dating.
Yeah, we should have swiped left.
We'll just have stopped it at the coffee date and go our separate ways. But I didn't listen. I didn't listen, right, to that little voice because it was money driven. It was whatever the reasoning of that decision. And then it becomes, right, like a client that can pay you a ton of money can still cost you a lot, of your sanity, your need to convince this person or whatever, right? Like I want to work with people that I'm going to feel like I can be friends with them and that we enjoy each other and that my time with you, I'm like so lucky to have you, as a person. And so that kind of metric is also important for me, right? To feel good. And so that first evaluation of things like what is enough, not just saying I should double my income every year, because that's what everyone says to do, not to say, should I be launching to the masses? Did I even want to do that? And I remember thinking, I don't want to be Tony Robbins. I don't want to be Marie Forleo. I don't want to be Amy Porterfield. I love them. They're great people. That's not the kind of recognition I want. I want long-term clients. I wanted to do more one-on-one, not more courses. And I was doing a lot more courses then because it was about reach, right? And that makes logical sense if that's the way you want to do it, right? But if I was to listen to my heart of hearts, I'm just a dive girl, and courses always left me feeling flat. Again, across the board for everyone, but for me on a truthful level, my best body of work, my best expertise and results of what I do is always through one-on-one. For why was I avoiding that and pretending that it's better to scale one-to-many, because that was sort of what you do after your one-on-one coaching practice is full, right? Why couldn't I just went, it's full. Whoa, yay. Okay, no more clients.
Period.
Just, rest on your loins.
Yeah. What a concept, right? Wow.
But that's just enough, right? Like I can just celebrate and this is totally good. I didn't know what that meant. I never did it like that. If something sold out, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta launch one more because there's a demand. So I have to launch another one. Like it wasn't never just enough, right? So that's why I think it was so important for me to start there, because if I didn't know what was enough in terms of like numbers, right? The real dollars of what it costs for my life, for my savings, for what I want to do with that money. And what do I need in the container of how I facilitated my expertise? What did I need to do my best work? Not what the world needs. We'll get there, but like I need to serve my needs first so that I'm showing up in the healthiest, most joyful way for my clients, right? And that's going to impact the results. That's going to impact the experience, right? And it's okay to not want what your other peers want. It's okay to not want to do a retreat if you don't want to do a retreat. It's okay to not do courses if you don't want to do courses, right? And it's okay to just stick to one-on-one and have, 12 amazing clients a year that pay you premium pricing because you do such deep VIP work and that's all you do. That's enough, right? So I needed to truly get to that recipe of what those ingredients that it takes for me to show up truly as myself, eliminate the things that didn't bring me joy, right? A very Marie Kondo style, right? Where she puts on the clothes and bring me joy. I kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
Who bring me joy? Does this client bring me joy? Does this marketing activity bring me joy? Like going through where I was spending my time and energy and ticking the boxes or pulling it out, right? And so that really supported me in shaping a business look like for me, which became tinier, which became more cozy. It became more of a feeling of, instead of inviting people into an arena of lots of people, it's an invitation to my living room. where you get to cuddle up with me on the couch and it's only by invite and it's only exclusive. And, like it's sort of a different vibe, of a brand, if you will, right? So it really helped me make the choices that I have to make of like, I didn't need to be on every marketing channel. Like I'm a video girl. I've never been a TikTok, Instagram, reel. I don't know. I'm YouTube, right? Like I was in YouTube for anyone else who's on YouTube, and that's the only thing I should do, for example.
Yeah.
Podcast, like where do I get to have a conversation? Like, so it was eliminating any of those activities that didn't bring out my true personality, my true way of doing something, where it's like no skin off my back to, for example, do something like that. But some people hate podcasts, and this would be quite not tolerable for them, right? Like, so you have to kind of question, where have I tolerated certain things because I think I have to do it, and what feels obligatory and what feels more of a, hey, I love doing this. This is my jam, and actually we double down here rather than spread ourselves out and do more things, so lots of that alignment conversation that I think I had to do in order for me to have a simpler schedule, to work with more than, a minimal number of people every quarter and every year, and then being content with a particular number. And if I've reached that number, I can coast. I can not take on clients for the next quarter or whatever I choose, right, for my life at that moment in time.
Oh man, that is such a refreshing perspective because it is so, in my opinion, I think most people want that.
I do too. I think I want that. I just didn't give myself permission to say it out loud because it almost felt like it wasn't like, why would you, you would want more, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want more for yourself? And that is a narrative. I think it's not our fault because I think in the business world, right? Who do we see on these like big accolade, magazines? People who do big things, empires, big brands, multiple brands, right? That have, 50 people on staff. That's why they can be in all channels and, look good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate managing people. Why do I have full-time staff? Like, I love working with people. So like I hire contractors and, project-based coaches, implementer, all sorts of people work with me. I do not want to fix. I do not want to train a new VA to do this and that for me. Like I want it so simple that I don't even need a VA. Like what does it look like? Right. So it's giving that sort of questions and playing with that to allow myself to think beyond what I think I had to do, which is really hard, like I said, for a doer, but that has been one of the proudest things I've done for myself in my business.
Oh, no question about it. That is so good. I'm curious in that reflection process, say it's on your Monday, and everyone's different, right? Like I'm a big journaler. It's so funny. I laugh at myself. I'm like, I am who I am wherever I am. I have big whiteboards. Like whenever I've had a place, I've been big old whiteboards and I just want to see it big. So when I'm traveling, I'm like, oh, like I even bought a whiteboard when I was in Bali. I was there 2 months and I ended up donating it. And it was like, it wasn't expensive, but I was like, my brain needs it. Like so I'll buy poster boards and just like map it out. That's what works for me. Other people are like, girl, you crazy. Like get it together. I'm like, I don't know. But I'm curious for you, like, is it, journaling prompt? Do you see things big? Do you have frameworks that you've done? Like, I know there's 6 types of working genius or the personality test or just different things to help you know who you are and plan that out in that time. What does that look like for you?
You're a whiteboard girl. I am a sticky note girl. I'm going to show you where my sticky, you see these?
Oh, I love it. Oh, that is amazing.
That's me. Okay. So I need my sticky notes. They're a little lighter to carry when you travel. And I'm a big color code. You know me now. I take it with me everywhere. And so Mondays are almost like the mini piece, like the weekly recurring date I have with myself, right? To look at my business as a whole, question the goals that I said I was going to do earlier in the quarter, right? And make sure that the way that I'm moving towards those goals still feel good to me. Because sometimes like when you, especially in the beginning of the year, we're like excited, we're full of inspiration, and we're like, yeah, these are the things I want to do. And then you go ahead and do some of those things. And sometimes that coat doesn't fit, or it's like, I thought this is what I would like, but I don't. And you don't want to keep pushing that, right? Like, I think this is why those weekly, even monthly or quarterly check-ins are really important, because it stops us from like doing that whole sunk cost bias thing we do where we're like, well, I already invested this much money onto Substack, but now I hate Substack and now I can't get out of Substack because I did all these things on it already, or whatever the tool is that or initiative or action that you thought you wanted to do. And it's hard to pull out from it when we invested too much time, And so we need to give it time to kind of see things through and go, okay, is it really for me or not? And that does deserve some time. But also sometimes some things are good to be put to bed. And you shouldn't have to want to do it anymore. You gave it a shot and you can move on to something that feels more aligned or learn from the data, right? Of what you did that didn't work and maybe something else did emerge, right? Into something of a better direction for you. So that analysis is kind of what I do. And sometimes I just do a little brain dump. Like what's the heaviness I feel? Where's that coming from? Was it from a conversation I just had? Was it from an activity I just did? Or was it from a particular, thing that I thought I had to do, right, for this week to accomplish something? Why does that thing feel heavy? And so sometimes it's just writing it in the sticky note, letting me see visually, what are little tidbits of what's going on in my mind, in my heart, in my spirit, and just kind of being on myself in terms of what's feeling heavy, what is feeling not in a line, like it's still the goal I want to get to, but maybe the approach I'm taking doesn't feel good. It feels icky. Like I get that sometimes with like, I don't know, marketing activities where I'm like, I get the funnels thing is a thing, but something about this makes me feel icky. So how do I create a funnel that feels human then, right? Like, how do I get that I can't talk to every single person that comes through my email list. So there has to be somewhat of an automation, but what part of the automation makes me icky and gross? And what parts do I want to come in and be more intimate, or come in with a Loom video, come in with a, send me a message and I'll actually reply to you as a real human being instead of a page or something, right? So it makes you question those things. And I think doing that weekly is great, just to like, it's almost like a finger on the pulse of like, okay, still feeling good. This week, is it still the right thing you want to do there? Right. But I think a bigger practice, a bigger ritual I do is my quarterly retreats for myself. They are mini private retreats. Sometimes there are 2 nights, sometimes there are 3, sometimes there are 1, depending on my capacity. Right. But every quarter, before the start of every quarter, I go away by myself and I book an Airbnb or a treehouse or wherever that I kind of want to have a vibe different from my office, from my home, from my community, and be by myself and be very alone. Bring my playlist, be in a robe all day, order room service. And I have my sticky notes, like, all the housekeepers that come to clean my room are like, what the hell happened? I have sticky notes everywhere, wherever I do my hotel retreats. But I literally don't leave that hotel. I just really go deep into what do I want this quarter to feel like? What did I learn from the last quarter? Where do I want to double down in the next 3 months? Where's my heart calling me that I didn't hear yet from the beginning of the year that, I want to hear now, right? That could be important for me to adjust my plans, to pivot things, or to put things to bed when it's necessary. That's a great ritual because I know every month I get to have that conversation with myself. So I'm not waiting till crisis. I'm not waiting till burnout. I'm not waiting till something feels like shit, and I'm questioning and making sure every quarter, right? And those retreats are so fun for me because I get to pick where I want to spend that time. I usually pick a hotel that even has like yoga classes or Pilates, and then I get to like work on my wellness and do my saunas or whatever that I want to do, and then come back and almost plan my own little personal retreat of my itinerary. And then I walk away from that, 2 nights, 3 nights, or whatever you can afford, right? Way fresher in my mind because the day to day, the sticky day to day, trying to figure this shit out when I should be doing it right more intentionally and more often.
Yes. Oh, so good, man. That makes me crave. I love those. I love that you call it a retreat and you're like that. I've never worded that for myself, but it's so funny because I have you heard of like maker manager? Some people use those terms for it, but like a maker day is like I have no meetings on my calendar and it's all what you're doing, but I've thought that way. I'm like, man, I need a maker day and I need to like get away and do that. So I love hearing your rhythm with that. And I love that you do that every week because I'm not as good at that. I got to get better at that. So man, okay. Another question I had for you, mentioned health. How has evolving your life in this way and, decreasing the workload, saying no to things, not launching 8 things a year. I hear that. Lydia, I hear that. How has it impacted your health?
It's been good. I mean, actually, I'm so glad I did this earlier, like, in terms of like years before I turned 40. I'm in my almost mid 40s now. Okay. So I'm in
You look good.
perimenopause.
You look good.
Thank you, honey. It's the
Mhm.
Bali sunshine. It's always a lovely ray of sunshine. But I'm so glad. Like one of the things I remember, I was just at a perimenopause menopause leadership event actually about
Mhm.
talking about how this change of life, this transformational stage for women at this midlife, right, mid-age stage of their life, how does that affect work? How does it affect the way we lead? How do it affect our capacity and what we defined as leadership as business owners, founders, et cetera, right? So it was a really great conversation. And I remember thinking as we were going through like all the different symptoms, right, that women ignore, right, like that they used to have capacity for, right? And it's funny with in a perimenopause stage of life, it's like all the things that like more rest, going to needing to go to the gym more, right, to build muscle, eating
Mhm.
well nutritionally, like all those things should have been things we should have been doing even in our 30s, right? But we tolerate it more in those early days because we didn't have the hormonal
Mhm.
changes to like give us that alarm bell going, hello, why haven't you slept only 4 hours a day or a night this whole week? You can't function like that. And in
Mhm.
perimenopause you were literally put down, right? Like you will not be able to work physically because that's how impactful those symptoms are. You can't ignore them, right? So that's
Mhm.
the gift of pause and menopause,
Mhm.
right? Is it supports you in doing the things you should have done all along for yourself, but you tolerate it more before
Mhm.
this stage of your life. So it's the most truthful and freeing era for women, even though it is
Oh,
painful hormonally, spiritually, and things like that. But that rebirth from that stage is actually a really beautiful thing from what I've been hearing from women older than me and things like that. But it's painful. It can be quite painful process for a lot of people. So that being said, as I was in that meeting or that workshop, I was thinking, man, I'm so happy that I did this, 20-hour, 25-hour a week schedule, almost 5 years ago, right now.
mhm.
I've done this thing where I have more time to work with a trainer. I have more time to stretch in the morning. I have time to cook my meals, right? And meal plan for myself. Really into the air fryer these days, by the way.
Love it. Love
And
it.
actually was like unconsciously, well, not unconsciously, but consciously doing it for my business, but unconsciously preparing for perimenopause
Wow,
in a
that's
lot of ways,
good.
right? So like
Yeah.
when I'm hitting it now, where my body, like I do need, like I nap every day. I need naps every day. I need to work out every week. I need to move my body and it'd be less stagnant in a desk every single day. But because those rituals, those practices were already something I was warmed up to, in the last 5 years, it really, for me personally, made going through perimenopause feel a little easier. It's not easy, but it feels like I've created a haven for myself
Mm.
to go through this transition in my life with more peace, with more ease, and more support.
Mm. Man, word of the wise, money. That is so powerful. Good for you. The power of investing time in a different way than people think I'm investing money or I'm investing to build. It's like you're building your body, you're building your life, your rhythm around what future you will need. So man, that's good.
Yeah, like I want to, like I wasn't a big like gym girl. I mean, I like the gym, but I think I preferred something non-gym if I was to be
Hmm.
honest, right? But
Hmm.
like that's
Yeah.
why I need a trainer because I need that motivation to get to the gym. Building the muscle, it's not easy, right? Like, to lift heavy weights, to, have my sciatica act up, if I didn't do something right. But my goal, right, is that I want to age, I want to have moments of aging, but I want my body to support me through the things that I still want to do while I age, right? I still want to hike, I still want to climb a mountain, I still want to walk my dog, Scruffy, and chase after her, toboggans into a muddy field and run together or whatever, right? Like I'm preparing myself to have the best years I can have,
Hmm.
of my life. Isn't that the point of us, like, making money? It's to have that life, right? To not wait till we're 70 to have that. I don't know, I might be too grumpy to travel at that point, or I might want to be, like I may be in a completely different state of mind, right? Of what I would need at that point, so I want to be living my life now till then, not kind of waiting for that moment to then celebrate, retirement. Like I want to feel semi-retired now, right? As much
Mm.
as I can,
Hmm.
and then, because who knows what life brings, right? Like life, who knows how long I get to live and all those things. And those questions are always on my mind of like living for today and, allowing myself and giving myself permission to have that kind of life now instead of waiting, like, make all the money first and then I'll enjoy it or something like that,
Mm,
which is how I think, suffer
mm.
first and enjoy later.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good, man. I'm really curious too, like having gone through burnout yourself and getting here and unlearning so much, are there certain, and maybe you've already mentioned it, but like things you notice in yourself, because it sounds like you have such a great rhythm, right? You're like, okay, my Mondays, my Fridays, my quarterly. Do you ever notice at this stage of the game times where you start to see because burnout typically it's like gradual then all at once, at least in my experience. It's like, wait a second, I just hit a wall, but I was actually walking towards the wall for a while. And I just noticed it when I hit my head. So, or right before, whatever. So do you notice that with yourself with anything? Like you said you can be type A when you need, but do you have to like rein that in, right? Where you don't, we're like, oh man, that's a path to burnout if I stop doing this or if I get away from that. Like, do you have those moments still?
Absolutely. I mean, I think where I've not lost some of the type A-ness. Like it's still existing in me, right? The difference now is I know how to manage it a little better,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's not like it's over and I'm this perfect person that never overworks, that never overdoes, right? I sure do it, especially when I get excited about something. I can very much confuse excitement and enthusiasm, with that overworking because I think, oh, I'm enthusiastic. I can keep working, but I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I know my where if I do that at some point it's going to be too much because no human being, even if you could do it physically, should do those types of hours.
Mm-hmm.
You just should, right? Even if it feels good at the time, right? Because there's a you pay the piper later. May not that
Yeah.
burnout may not happen today, but it might happen a year from today, could happen 6 months from today. And I remember, and I think I told you the story when we first met in your French Uber, when we first had a conversation. Like my first ever burnout was not in business, right? It was in corporate in Russia. When I had
Yeah.
a work conference there, I used to work in international education and was doing all these like conferences for the Embassy of Canada and schools and things like that in Canada. And I had a nervous breakdown, right? I had a nervous breakdown in Moscow, right, in the winter, and I couldn't get out of my hotel room because I developed temporary agoraphobia, right, which is a condition where you feel like everything outside that door is danger. And you feel panic attacks constantly. And I was all by myself. So that was the first time I ever felt a burnout, which was like the worst thing that ever happened to me, but also the best thing that ever happened to me because I had to take time off, right? I had to take a mental health month to see a therapist and all those things, which then opened up the doors for that awareness, right? And understanding of what's causing me to work in those conditions, right?
Mm.
And whether or not this job is right for me, for example. Now, the second burnout was in business, right? Where I was my own boss now and no one to blame but
Yeah.
myself, right?
Yeah.
I was still operating in the old OS, right? The old
Mm.
operating system of proving myself, doing more to prove myself, like not being content and happy with what I have achieved, right? And that's what brought me to the same place again. Luckily not in Russia and wasn't a nicer paradise of Bali, but still, right? Same
Mm.
energy, same burnout, right? And
Mm.
so if I was to be honest, looking back, there were so many signs I ignored, right? And part of that was like even very simple things like, had I seen a friend lately? Like because I was working so social life, I had a partner that I barely saw, right? Or I found myself making excuses not to go to a party or not to go for dinner or whatever because I needed to just curl up in the couch and recuperate from the day because I was
Mm.
working such long hours, right? That is a sign. Right. But for me, I was like,
Mm.
oh, I'm just a little exhausted from running, two intakes or two cohorts of a course back to back. And I deserve to, have a little Netflix binge. Right. But
Mm.
it kept continuing like that. It wasn't just a
Mm.
sprint it was all year round like that. And so that was a good indicator that my personal life was having a toll. And that's something I, still look at, right, as an indicator of like, if I haven't seen friends or spent meaningful time with my partner or been on calls with friends I love or whatever it is, where am I spending my time? And it's usually a clue to overworking, a
Mm.
clue to not having balance, a clue to not allowing myself to have other pleasures that I used to love, because I'm so focused on launching something or creating something or whatever, you
Mm.
know. Somatically, I think after going through those two burnouts, I'm a lot more educated about my body and the signals my body sends me because that kind of feeling I never had because I was such a brain girl. Everything was about thoughts and what I thought was the right thing to do, what I thought was the wrong thing to do. It's not how I felt,
Mm,
and so that's some connection between, hey, that might still be something I could do. My brain's like, you can do it, you've done it before, but if my body starts to have that pit in my tummy feeling, or when I meet someone, it doesn't quite align and I feel the weird goosebumps that are not the good goosebumps. It's like listening to those signals somatically from your body,
mm,
which I think can help, has helped me recognize that even if my brain says go, green light,
mhm,
go, body tells a different story,
mm.
in terms of how I really feel about
Yeah.
stuff. And right, the body never lies. And so
Mhm,
that's a place I with more sometimes. And I think we all kind of have had those
mhm,
signs where your body's like, oh, I didn't, something's in my tummy. I feel it in my chest. It's like, my clients tell me they feel this like almost like this huge weight on their chest whenever they're wanting to do something that they know is going to exhaust them or they know isn't the right thing for them to do, but they do it anyway. That's
mm.
the signal, but they ignore it, right? Feels like a crushing chest feeling or a pit in my stomach feeling or a sweats, of like, oh, I gotta have to get ready for this, kind of feeling, but it's not pleasure, it's not ease, you
Mm.
know? And,
Yeah.
and so I think though, I don't know if you've had any of those
Oh,
signals that you might have ignored in the
for
past as well.
sure. For sure. Yeah. I thank you for that because I'm in this place right now. Little side note story is 2020, or right before COVID hit, I was working 80 hours a week and I was working full time, building a business. And long story short, for my reasons, looking back, I have an addictive personality, like tendency for that. So I just became a hardcore workaholic to an like bigger degree where it just was like no days off. I worked 100 days straight, which isn't the craziest amount ever. But I look back and I'm like, I would get out of bed and my legs would give out underneath me. Like that is how maxed out. And, and I was working in health for most of what I was doing. So it was like, but
Irony.
yeah, irony, right? Like such irony. And I'm very real with my clients too. I'm like, hey, I've been on a journey. I figured a lot out. Like, it's a mountain, right? I'm always climbing it. There's always another peak, man. Like like this holds me accountable to still be good and not veer off. So, but anyways, and it happened a couple of times where like my nervous system just was tapped, not sleeping, tapped. And then COVID hit. And I'm not saying that I'm glad COVID happened. I'm just saying I'm also a little grateful that my body was like, well, I can't work a lot of this stuff right now. So I can
Yeah.
sleep a little bit. And I still worked, but nonetheless, that was the first like time that I really was like, I can't ignore this. I'm not a machine. I am human and I must rest. But to that point is even coming off, about 6 months into this nomadic life. And it's been amazing. It's been like, I've had to unlearn my travel urges of like, it's okay if I don't see everything in a place, like that's fine. I'm not living this for Instagram. If I didn't have social media, I would be living this life anyway. So I'm not living this to post about it. I have a passion to share the world with people, so that's where I get excited to share of like, oh, come see the world, come with me, like that's my heart about it. But that is a tension I felt. So anyways, just coming back and kind of having this whirlwind, I'm in this spot of like, yeah, I haven't tuned into my body, you know, in a little bit, in probably a couple months to be like, okay, what do I really need? Where are we at now? Versus getting caught up in the excitement of like, oh yeah, I want to go to that country. I want to go do this thing. It's like, well, maybe just chill for a second. So, anyways, I really appreciate you sharing that because I think so many, especially high achievers, it's like, no, mindset all day, David Goggins, get it done. Do the hard thing, baby,
Yeah,
in a week.
that's why that identity question is so important of like who do I think I'm becoming as well, right? Because the old Lydia was all about the doingness because we understand, or I understood now through therapy, right? Through that understanding of self of sometimes when I do, or when I'm taking action, or where I add on more to the plate or want to launch more things, where's that coming from?
Hmm.
Like is there an attachment to an identity of that I'm not lovable unless
Hmm.
I create things, unless I am of value? It is as deep as that sort of way of questioning it, because we're not just doing things because we're doing things. There's a reasoning behind it, and
Hmm.
usually, unfortunately, it is about childhood. It is about our younger self, right, trying to fill a hole
Hmm. Yeah.
of worthiness and enoughness. Like that certainly was mine, and And so I think it's so important, when we have those moments of something, like the wobbles, right? Like my therapist calls it the wobbles. Like nothing's gone wrong, but something feels shaky. Like you're not on stable ground, right? But you're not off the cliff yet. But that when you receive the wobbles is a sign, right? It's like something's not matching
Mm,
a way you want to do it or a way you want to feel or whatever the reasoning is a moment of a necessary pause to
mm,
question where that's coming from and question, where are parts of my identity attached to a behavior, a
mm,
mindset, an action that actually isn't mine, truly mine. It's something where I think I have to perform in
mm,
order to in order to be recognized, in order to be seen as an expert, in order to be respected from my peers. What
mm.
is where is that from? And that is, I think an important question because sometimes we tend to just continue doing things on autopilot,
Mm,
without questioning it, and then becomes right the burnout to have to wake us up, right, which is
mm.
unnecessary. We don't need to get to that point to
Yeah.
make those changes, but that little tiny right observations, listening to yourself and asking those questions, often I think is part of growth as a business owner, not just your business plan or your marketing plan or your funnel strategy to be paid attention to.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's so good. It's interesting to say that, and I'd love your thoughts on this too. Now, hitting a rhythm that's really in a groove, and like you are on YouTube, and you do have an email list, and you do have these means of marketing, but they're very aligned, right? With, like you said, with who you are, and something that I've been like, I feel like I'm getting to more and more to this place now because I was off social media for 8 years, got back on end of 24, and started posting content more regularly, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I have a gal that helps me. She's amazing. And I'm like, girl, let's just, you post this amount, do whatever. And I'm like, cool, let's run it. And I'm just in like, we're just putting in reps. I don't know, like, but I haven't had, I feel like my feet in this game long enough to know what feels right and what's aligned. I'm just trying things. But now I'm getting
Yeah,
to the place where I'm like, yeah, I don't love that. How is this coming across? I'm not sure. Like, oh, yeah, no, that's actually not me, in this method, or nah.
right,
I've been listening to other people like you should do this or this is how it goes or blah blah blah.
right,
I'm like, oh, well, I want to do what works. I want to be successful. So
right.
yeah, so I'm curious, like, what is that? I mean, now finding your rhythm, do you still adapt that, or are you like, I've pretty much landed on, I know my lane, I know what this looks like, and because obviously you still have a thriving business and you have clients, and I'm sure you get a ton of referrals. So yeah, what does that look like for you now versus before?
Yeah, thank you for that question because it is for me when I look at it of have I found my groove, right? Like I would say yes, and also sometimes it doesn't feel right anymore. And then that's when I change it slightly. So for example, podcasting, okay, love a podcast, but then I also used to have my own podcast where I was like solo in it and I had it's
Mhm.
called the Screw the Cubicle podcast, right? And it's like I love podcasts, but like there's something around producing that kind of podcast,
Mm,
right? I didn't like. And it exhausted me.
mm,
And it wasn't a conversation because it was just me, right? Performing. It was me advising. It was me coaching all the time. And it's like, that's great. I get paid for that.
mm-hmm,
The podcast, I want it to be something that looks different, right? Which is more of a conversation. So now that I have a new podcast with another peer, right, Myra Akhter, called Small on Purpose, like this feels more aligned with me. So it's not that podcast is not a thing anymore, but an adjustment of like,
mm,
how do I want to do this that feels more fun? I have more fun when I'm in conversation. I have more fun when it's more than my brain only. I have more
mm,
fun when it feels like a collective intelligence of people coming together to do something together,
mm,
and so like that's the kind of stuff that can change sometimes. But what hasn't changed is what I'm good at. Every time I think like, when I double down on YouTube and then I stop doing it or something like that, like the next year, and I was like, let's
mhm,
try this new thing that someone said was great. Every
mm,
time I'm always like, it was fine. Like that works
mm,
for, I'm sure it can work for me too. But it's like I've not changed as a person. Like I didn't, like
mm,
video is always going to be my thing. Like conversations are always going to be my thing. And so when I decide on a different platform or I want to try out Substack or I want to try out whatever's the new thing that's seasonally popular, I always
mhm,
find like a lot of time trying to learn this new thing when actually I should just spend that time just doing more videos or making my YouTube channel more amplified and more
mm,
optimized, And so like I kind of am a big believer now in more like the depth instead of like, like spreading, like what's that Michelle Obama quote. It's like, what is it? You go wide and we go deep. What is the thing that she said as an insult to like Trump or something?
Oh,
Like
oh
this, like,
gosh, it's like bringing a yeah, yeah,
oh, now we got to like actually Google it and find it. But
I
it was something
know.
around like, you go wide, I go deep kind of thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like they're going to 5 different channels. That's how I interpret it. I'm going to do one and I'm going to go real deep with that, and use my all into this method, this thing, that is more of who I am and not get the shiny object syndrome of just because the industry is using TikTok or using this or using that I should be on there either, right?
Mm.
Because then you spread yourself too thin anyway,
Oh
you
yeah.
know? Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that kind of like I have very, very minimal systems of marketing and they're not fancy. You know what I mean? Like SEO people will come to my business and go, "What the hell? You are been on for 12 years and your keywords are so this and that." They'll give me shit for that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm not an SEO girl. That shit really bores me. I do not want to learn. I get I have to do it, but gun to head, if I was to choose what
Mm.
I can do for my business to move the needle, you know what? Getting on podcast shows is also good SEO.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is SEO.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have to spend time with keywords and Google Analytics tags. Like, yes, that's important, but not the end of things that I
Mm-hmm.
have to, right? So like you pick and choose where you want to, you know what I mean? Like use your muscle and use your genius zone because that's going to be more fruitful and it's going to feel better, right? Like to learn more in that direction you're actually interested in than trying to solve all the problems that you're going to have in your business, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone will tell you whatever this next thing is that you have to do to have a successful business, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell and perhaps their method does work, but you got to still choose for yourself, in terms of the direction and the like your own blueprint looks different.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, like I don't do ads, for example, where I could be doing ads and maybe building my list more. But again, I look at a logical reason, like I don't need that many clients.
Mm. Yeah.
Build that list, but what is that? A vanity metric? Like,
Mm.
do I want to build my list? Absolutely. But I don't need to build my list in such a, what's the word, like large way,
Mm-hmm.
because I would rather have more right and ready clients than fill seats, right? On a course or something. I'm not doing it that's not my model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather be more intimate in how I recruit, if you will, right? Clients, right? It's through conversation, it's through more intimacy, right? Less of the funnels, less of the Facebook ad stuff, right? And it's a lot more like grassroots, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
So it's not sexy, like I said, my marketing strategy. It's just really real to what I need to feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm being myself. And it's also probably really real to the right people who need me, who prefer a good old-fashioned conversation rather than an 8-step funnel
Mm-hmm.
of a bunch of landing pages to have to jump through. Like it's not sexy, but my entire business has run for 12 years based on very old school ways of operating.
Mm-hmm.
That automated or sequenced in such a way that it's fancy. It's
Mm-hmm.
very non-fancy, and that works for me because that's how I want my business to feel. Very accessible, very much. I'm a community oriented person, that I'm not hidden behind some glass wall. That like I'm with you along the
Mm-hmm.
way, right? That vibe is very different in a marketing strategy.
Mm. That's man, that's really, really good. And I I'm sure a lot of people that listen, so few people talk about that, I feel like, or at least it's maybe not a narrative that I'm tuning into more because I'm like, wait a second, because I'm a pretty aligned person, but I've also been in a new avenue. So I'm like, I don't know what this looks like here yet. I'm just learning.
Right. And
And
online business is so different from a physical business, right? Like
yeah,
that changes too, because then you don't, I agree with that. Like when I first started, I'm like, I don't know anything about the online world. So of course, when someone said you should have a Facebook page I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I do.
yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah.
I didn't question like, is Facebook where I want to, like, do I even want to do something on there? Or is it just like copy paste, in that thing? Or
Mm,
is it like, where do I feel like I'm proud of me showing up there?
mm,
Or is it just like, for the algorithm, right? Like, and does that feel right for me? But I do agree, like, it's hard to decipher because if the online world, because there's so many unknowns about how to be seen now with AI, like, now they're teaching how to make sure Chat GPT and Claude name your business, when a client's searching for something. And so now you got to please the bots as well
Mm,
with the right keywords. And how do you do that? Right. So there's always something new
mm,
going on,
yeah.
right? It never stop, I think,
Mm,
in
yeah.
terms of the next, right? And
Yeah.
it can be so exhausting,
Mm,
to do it all. And again, like not everyone will agree with me. Someone might say I'm behind the times, because I'm not adapting to TikTok or I'm not adapting to whatever. And I was like, girl, I've been here before, online business was a thing. I was like in this before this became a fad, right? Of like being
yeah.
online and having an online business. I used to have to call my clients through a calling cards, like 1-800 numbers. I had to take a penny and scratch off the code to call my clients from a hut in Ubud, okay, where there was no internet. Like, don't tell me what I think I know.
Yeah. Yeah. You paved the way. Gosh darn it. Oh my gosh. Well, it even I
Behind that, But yeah, it's not good.
it's what's so refreshing is that you're so aligned. You are so aligned and you have peace, the fact that like you aren't doing it for vanity. You're doing it because of your lifestyle and your purpose and what's important to you and who you are. And I think so much of the noise that people get caught up in, and I am, like I've shared it, included in that to a degree, is if people don't know that about themselves. If they
Yeah.
don't know who they are, what's important to them, where they're going, who they actually want to help, then but I say that because it's refreshing because I've, yeah, this is helping me a lot. I don't just so you know, so I'm sure people listening too are just like, wow, yeah, this is a different perspective, a different take, and releasing, letting go of what's not yours to carry, right? And
Beautiful.
just living an authentic life, a fulfilled life. I mean, we're all, can you just share a little bit about your lifestyle now too? I have so many other questions, but I just, what outside of work, so outside of the tiny business, so some of the travel you've done and, you know, hobbies you've had and fun community experiences, like what does that look like outside of all of this?
Yeah. Every year it changes a little bit. Like this year is a year that my partner and I are building a house from scratch. So this is like a feat, like it's like labor of love for sure, but a lot of unknowns. Like I know how to renovate. Like I renovated my cottage here, it took years of kind of learning how to work with like wood, and everything has to be built from scratch, by the way. So like every piece of furniture is by like you don't just go to a store and buy it, right? Like you got to make it. And so you have to be very intentional, right? You got to know what you want. You have to be patient, and it's not this like mass production IKEA thing going on here,
Mm,
right? It's starting to get to more brands and retailers like coming into Bali, but for sure, if you want to make certain things, you have to make it from scratch, right? And so building a whole house is like, holy shit, it's
mm,
a lot of commitment, it's a lot of like, but it's our dream house, and it's something that we're really excited to do, which means that I need more spaciousness for that project. I need
mm,
also because I don't operate like a normal, I don't know, Canadian North American person where I came from, where I can get a mortgage and all that, right? Everything's cash, and that has to come up front, right? And so like even my enough number, right, has adapted this year
mm,
and beyond to afford that and have that house paid for,
mm,
and disposable, or actually more flexible income, right, in order to or sorry, more income even, right, to be able to hire people and right do the things to get this house going. But year to year, one of the things I always love in my life, kind of like you, travel is like my biggest teacher,
mm,
my biggest mirror, to all the things that I need to learn. And
mm.
every time I even resist something, travel always is that like teacher that will be like, oh, you didn't get that last time. Here's another situation.
Oh my
Like
God.
you're fixing another train carriage. Oh, you got to run after that now, Kenzie.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
call you in the morning. It's I didn't used to laugh at things like that. I used to think, if something bad happened to me, if something was my fault, and I would be so inflexible in how I operated. I was like, oh my God, this didn't work out. What the hell? And now through travel, through doing this for a long time, I'm like, man, that muscle to learn how to be flexible and the muscle to learn how to like, oh, I missed that train or I missed that flight or that hotel room is not what I thought I booked. And you find little moments of joy and humor and a
Mm,
different adventure. Sometimes that leads you through a different adventure that you didn't plan for, and to be open to that. And that's really changed how gentle I am to myself when I
mm,
make a mistake and all those things, right? So travel has been such a recurring ritual my partner and I do. So we live, Bali's base, but we live in different homes, seasonally. So right before we came back here to Bali earlier this year, we were in Vietnam for 2 months. Then we went to Bangkok to see some friends who were visiting from Canada, and then we're going to be in Europe. Hopefully, I get to see you if you get down there for the summer, right? And having these different flavors of a reality has been really nourishing for our souls, and the food, the culture, all that makes me feel like always this fresh new person again, that I get to learn something, which always makes life really, really fun.
That is, I'm sure people that are listening that have that's filling up their dream bucket right now because it's
Yeah.
so cool. And how did you and your partner meet, by the way?
I actually met him when I went back to Vancouver, which I usually do every summer.
Mm,
And then I would have like 3 months that I would spend there. And
mm,
then I would go, well, Vancouver is a home and I could try to date here because, being on the road, like, I mean, Bali's fine, but it's a lot of transient energy, right?
mm.
Which means holiday, they're not, or they're like going through a crisis and they go to Bali to heal, which is perfectly fine, but you're not really ready for a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I would a lot actually when I would leave Bali and go into different places and meet different people from different cultures and things like that. So yeah, I met my partner dating in
Mm,
Vancouver, and we were kind of in the same stage of life. There's something kind of interesting dating in your 40s.
mm,
Especially when you know what you want and you've been your own best partner. I
mm,
found that was the time I dated the best because there was nothing to fill. I wasn't like, you complete me. It's like, no, I'm complete. You
yeah.
need to bring something to the table that we can have a life together,
That's
and
right.
it's like, and it was so much more of a confident way of, like knowing who I am and knowing what I need and whether you fit or not. And luckily, we found each other at the exact perfect season of both our lives, and what we wanted and what we were committed to in a relationship. And yeah, wasn't much to convince him to move to Bali. And we, celebrate our third-year anniversary this year.
No, I love that. I love love. That is so beautiful.
To like, have someone do this life with you because sometimes, like you say, like, it's like, oh my God, everybody wants this life, but not everybody's willing to do
Yeah.
what it takes to, because it's not all what you see on Instagram. Okay.
Mm,
There's like lots of unlearning, there's lots of hard moments, there's lots of discomfort, but if that's what you want, it's worth doing it, right? As they say, choose your hard. Everything's hard. Choose the one that you want to, that at least leads you to a place that you want to eventually be, so yeah, dating, that's a whole episode, by the way, if you ever want to talk about like being nomadic and dating.
yeah, I
I have
do.
lots
Yeah.
to say about that.
I do actually. I'm 6 months in. I've gone on a few dates and it's been funny, but I don't know. I'm like
Yeah,
kind of
it's good.
getting yeah, it's a different but I love what you said too, because I'm there more than ever. And I believe I'll continue to get there. I still have some work to do, no question.
Mm.
Of just like, yeah, I know who I am. What do you bring to the table? And like my life's good. And I've never felt so in that as I do now. And with that, I think I've been realizing in past relationships, like, okay, I'm like intentionally getting more on the healing journey of the like my attachment style and things like that. Because
I had to do so much work.
oh yeah, yeah. Has that been like has therapy been helpful for you with that?
Life changing, life changing. Like I've been with my therapist for 15 years, and
Mm,
so she every stage of, my life. And I think that is something actually also an undervalued thing that entrepreneurs should invest in and should commit to
mhm,
is therapy. It's part and parcel of how much you spend on a marketing strategist to a social
yeah.
media expert or, a business coach even, right? Like a therapist is such an essential partner to the
Mm,
work because do in business, whether it's the decisions we have to make, to the enoughness question we talked about, to dating, therapy is such unraveling, right? And unearthing of all those patterns and repetitive patterns, right? That run in the background that we're not even really aware of. So even when we make big changes, they just don't stick,
mm,
and so it's been so essential in learning about myself, caring for myself, and just having someone that's not your friends, not your
mm.
partner to unload on, and someone that's paid to take your shit.
Important. It is important. It is. It is. I appreciate
Don't
you saying
dump.
that.
Don't dump on your friends and your partner.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's good. So it's funny. I actually did therapy for 6 years. I had an amazing therapist, and I met with her 2 to 4 times a month, $120 an hour, best money ever. Like that was a budget line item forever. And then my last split in my relationship, it's like a whole new world opened up. And I was like, hey, what is life like if I don't like, I'm not dependent on that, if you will. And overall it's been solid, but I'm at the place where I'm like, I want to do some more proactive work or like some healing for sure of like the past, making sure I'm like, not ignoring stuff because I'm sure I am. But yeah, it's been a thought again recently. So I appreciate you being so open about that. Cause yeah, I think a lot of people don't either they haven't done it or there's maybe still a stigma they feel around it. And it's like, we're not meant to get out of this life, on our own. And so, but it's cool to hear someone like yourself that's so accomplished and you found, who you are and you live such an intentional life that you didn't get here alone. You did in your own, determination and drive, and yet you've had support like a therapist to get here.
Totally. I still we need people. We always need
Mhm.
people. And that was one of the biggest work I had to do in therapy is to not solely rely on myself because I came from such a broken home in my
Mhm.
childhood that I had to fend for myself at such a young age. I had to work at 12. 12 years old when I got my first job to fend for myself. I didn't even get my high school books paid for, right? So there was no nurturing in my parental figure family unit, which
Mhm.
taught me never to ask for help. Always do it by myself. And that was part of my labor that I took on,
Mhm.
of not support or even doing more than I need to be doing in order to feel
Mhm.
seen and acknowledged and So like that we need everybody that is successful has been doing it with others, whether they admitted it or not. And I
Mhm.
think the people that have the most fun is when they're doing it with others, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of holding the weight of your business and the world on your shoulders, for sure.
Mm. Man, that's Lydia, I could talk to you all day. Literally, I have another 20 questions for you. You have such wisdom and just thank you for being so open about your journey and how you got here. Yeah, we're gonna do part two and I vote it's in
We
person.
gotta do part two. Yay!
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be so fun. So where can people find you if they want to connect and reach out, get to know you, build that relationship, and obviously even work with you in coaching? What does that look like?
Well, my website's sort of a great home base to start
Mm.
in, which is screwthecubicle.com. Or if you want to see me at my best, YouTube, right?
Yes.
Go to my YouTube channel. And I mean, people actually love starting at the YouTube channel because you get to know my work in a much more real way. Like
Mm.
the website's great and everything, but like it's written, and
Mm.
like if you are someone that just needs to see me, right? Like just get a tone of like what you can learn from me and you
Mm.
can just binge. I mean, I have 500 videos on my YouTube channel. And they're done in all these different parts of the playlist that, if you need it in a different part of your journey, there's a
Wow.
video there, right? So that's the best way to get to know me and take up all those resources. That's what I make them for, is so
Mm.
that, you don't have to work with me first to even get some of that help. Right. And then
Mm.
when you're ready for someone to be a partner to your business, a partner to supporting you to not throw the baby out of the bathwater, not to, like like anyone that has a business, some of it works, right? And some of it doesn't, right? And it's not, people get afraid to start over and they always think, oh my God, I have to start everything from scratch. And it's not true. There's a lot of really beautiful wisdom and parts of your body of work, parts of who you are that we want to bring forth into the next version of you. But it's really that tweaking and that tailoring to what season of life are you in? What do you need more of now than you did when you first started? And what is this identity? Who are you becoming that we want to be designing your business to hold the container for, right? And allow you to live your life, to have more time with your kids, to have more morning rituals for yourself, like whatever. You don't even have to work 20 hours a week if you don't want to do that. Like me, you could work 30, you could work 40. There's not, it's not set in stone, but the point is it has to be yours. It has to be your
Mm.
ingredients and your recipe for success. And that's my favorite work, is not to get people to copy my blueprint. I don't have any blueprints, by the way.
Mm.
There's no plug and play. There's no swipe this file and da da da. No, that's just not how I work. It's really deep, deep, meaningful work that takes time, takes
Mm.
conversation, partnership, takes accountability, and love towards that journey together. So yeah, if that kind of like lands for someone going, man, I'm kind of sick of courses. I really do need a real human
Mhm.
guiding me through this, doing it with me, as a partner, then I would love to hear from you.
Oh, that is so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll link everything below. That's incredible. And I just have a few more quick questions for you. And these are questions I actually like to ask everybody, but get
Okay.
your on it. Just boom, 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 whatever first comes to mind. The first one's probably the toughest question a traveler can get because it's like, how could you ever possibly answer it? So I'm more so curious, maybe the most recent or like favorite memory of a place you've traveled. So one of your favorite places you've gone, and why is it one of your favorites?
Okay, the one that pops in my head right now is Oaxaca, Mexico.
Mhm.
And people don't go to Oaxaca because there's not really like a beach or anything close by, but it's like little Europe in Mexico. And it's the best Mexican food I've ever had in all of Mexico, in my opinion. And what's cool about Oaxaca is that it's so cultural. And every single week, I swear to God, I was living there for 3 months at one point, and every week there was a parade. They're all about parades. Like they celebrate everything. So the first day I landed in Oaxaca, they were celebrating trans people, that all trans people in Mexico come to Oaxaca for safe haven. And also they think about trans people differently, where it's almost like if you had a daughter or son or, child that is trans, it means they're special. It means they have these different ways of navigating the world in ways that a normal person can't see and be, that they are like almost like bigger spirits, that can thread in two worlds, so there's a huge parade of colors, dancing. All the trans people came out, all the family of trans people came out, and it was like the biggest celebration on the streets. And then the week after, it was like a children's parade celebrating children. There's more parades happening.
Give me a
It's
parade.
amazing.
You get a parade and you get a parade. That's awesome.
It's a parade, and just like it's a cozy little town the way I like it. But there's like so much nature, hot
Mm.
springs, hikes, all the things, and just walking the streets is awesome. Like if you love art, you love street art, you love street food, you love music, you love colors, you love celebration. Oaxaca is one of the places that I can absolutely see a second home base in.
Wow, that's amazing. What part of the country is it in?
Really bad geographically. So let me
I
actually
know.
even Google this for you. So that I'm
Yeah,
like, where is Oaxaca?
yeah. No, you're good. I do that
I'm
all
like,
the time. Literally all the time. And I
this is here, southwestern.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
So you
Wow.
have to usually fly into Mexico City and then fly out from there. Yeah, so there's
Okay,
rarely I've seen a direct flight, but I could be wrong.
okay. Wow, that's so Mexico. I was just in Cabo actually this last weekend. I've been to Cabo. I've been to other parts, but I hear great things about Mexico City. I've been hearing a lot about Tulum
Mhm.
and now Oaxaca. Oh my gosh. Let's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, San
travel.
Pancho is also a really nice one from Puerto Vallarta. It's about 2 hours from Puerto Vallarta. So out of the tourist district and into more kind of secluded beaches and stuff. But so again,
Mhm.
small town, cozy, surfer paradise, but a nice spot. I've lived there as well with a few friends, and it was really nice to be in that part of the world. And it kind of feels almost like a little Ubud, in Mexico. So I seem to be like loving my more cozy spots than big
Yeah,
cities
yeah.
for sure.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Well, good for you. I love that. Okay, do you have a favorite book or podcast that you'd like to listen to?
Ooh. I mean, one that's always on rotation, talking about therapy, is Esther Perel's Where Should We Begin podcast.
Mm.
I love it. It's so good. And you're like a little fly in the wall listening to her private sessions with a patient that's very specific to a topic, but it's so well done, it's so well produced. And I learned something about humans, about relationships, about, like all things about our childhood and how that, gets interpreted in adult life. It's one of my like favorite shows to be when I'm on my scooter, in the
Mm.
morning, going to get a coffee or whatever. That's the thing in my AirPods, and they're short, they're not super long, but it's like a little injection of just like real talk because she's a therapist, but she's really blunt, and I
Mm.
love it. She's just tells it as it is. She calls it out, but it's very gentle and loving and warm. So that is my favorite podcast right now.
Ooh, that's good. I'll have to listen to that. I love it. Okay, okay. Okay, if you could pick one song that is the soundtrack to your life, and it could be different seasons, so whatever, again, I won't hold you. You can have a whole you have a whole album, with how your life is. I love it. But yeah, if you could pick one, what would it be?
Like this is the worst question for me because I literally am so bad with song names. So bad with song names. But I'm trying to think about like if I open my Spotify, I bet I could find a song there. But like I don't know the names per se, but like I have a lot of SZA on my playlist at the moment.
Mm.
And I just can't think of a name of her song, unfortunately. This is the worst question for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
I
her,
well,
just spot like just go to her Spotify, listen to her songs, and that's my vibe.
okay. I vibe with it. I vibe with it. I will say it's the most recent question that I added, and I was like, I don't know, this could be a tough one. It could be a tough one because I'm also
Let's
not
do
good with
her like
songs.
I'm really bad with names. So
Yeah.
bad. I can know the song lyrics. I can even, when it comes on, I'm like, okay, know the song. If you're like, what song is this? I'll be like, oh,
Shazam, what's yeah.
I have Shazam.
Yeah, okay, maybe I'll reword the question because that's on me. Okay, do you remember the last time that you laughed so hard that you cried?
Oh my God, that's I'm trying to think about like, I do laugh a lot. I mean, you can hear from my cackle. I
Yeah.
love to laugh. I would say that like, this is going to be such a weird story though. I think that like when my partner moved in
Mm,
to my house, okay,
mhm,
and I so back in the day, we hadn't the where I was living, there wasn't like these big gyms or anything, right? So I would have my trainer meet me here at the office and
mm,
we would work out, I'll bring like equipment, blah, 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 and we'll work out here. And I just, Travis, my partner, had just moved in. And so he somehow was like integrating into my life, whatever. And when I'm at, like, when you move in together and you're just like, I want to be perfect. I don't want to do
oh,
all the things that she'll see me do, or, like, or I'm sure I did the same thing because you're just like, I'm great to live with, and you don't want to show your like whatever size. So he's always like waiting and like, like it's like, the worst thing when you live with someone is like, we have one bathroom to share. I need to time things properly. Do you know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm. Yep, I'm picking up what you put down, girl.
My music's on. He knows I'm working. I said, all right, this is the time. This is the time that I do my thing. Okay. And then I was like, oh shit, I gotta go pee, right? In the middle of a workout. I was like, I gotta go, I gotta go. So I run out the door and I forget I live with someone because I've been living on my own for so long. And I
Yeah.
just burst this door open, right? Like just like, ugh. And then I looked at him on the toilet and he looks at me and it was just the longest pause. And I just went and I screamed like I saw a ghost. I don't know why this came out of me, but I went and nothing came out of his mouth. And I slammed the door shut. And my reaction was so severe. We just both started howling because of just like how, like in the beginning, it's all this romance or whatever. And I'm like, I just caught you on the shitter. And I just burst open, came in. I would just I looked at him and continued like as if I didn't see him. I literally didn't know someone was in my house. That's how much I'm so used to being alone.
Oh my gosh.
Where I just couldn't stop laughing the entire time. And my trainer was like, what's the problem? And I was like, I just saw Travis in the toilet. And he's like, yeah, so my whole family of 15 in a compound shares one toilet. Like we've seen it all. And I was like, well, good for you. But this is so we immediately felt more comfortable with each other after that,
Oh.
and anyway, so yeah, you asked, and that's the memory that popped up for me.
I love it. I love it. It's so funny. You know what's funny? This was like a high school boyfriend, but the first time I passed gas in front of him, we high-fived because it was
Yeah.
so funny. And it was like we are bonding a
See,
lot. Yeah.
isn't that so crazy that we think like all the humanly things that we don't know each other do, but we pretend that this
I
doesn't happen?
yeah.
Why? What's wrong with us?
I don't know. I don't know, but that is funny. Oh my gosh. Talk about the intimacy building in the weirdest way.
It is. And I'm just a blood curdling scream, I think, really took him out. He's just like, holy shit, I didn't think you'd be that shocked. But I just didn't expect it, It's really, really funny.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate you going there. That's so good.
I don't know if you
Um,
would like me sharing, but it's fine. Post
yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Hey, Travis's name, all good. Everybody poops. There's a book about it. It's
Okay,
cool.
Travis, you're
Yeah.
good.
Oh man. Okay, last question here, and man, my cheeks hurt. Changing gears a little bit from the tone. If I'm going to set the stage, okay? This is a world-changing stage. So if you imagine that you had the opportunity to have everyone in the world listening to you give a speech, and you could share something that could impact them, change their life, your message, what would that message be?
Oh, there's so many things I want to say. If it's just this one stage I get to be on.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
Um,
fine. Go for it.
I know. It's always like one of those things where like I have so much to say and how do I weave that into a talk? But I think what's actually most important for me is this part about enoughness, right?
Mm,
That part of not just knowing what your enough is, but doing that excavation, right? To sort of understand in your life, as a person, right? Like that is contributing, especially if you are someone that is a mission-driven person, right?
mhm,
You are impact driven, you're values driven, which I think a lot of you people are, right? I mean, your
mhm.
whole whole thing is world class change, right? For people making the world class impact. It's
Mhm.
so easy for people that are made up like us, the givers,
Mhm.
the doers, impact makers of the world, to never feel enough in everything that they do.
Mhm.
And you're no use to anyone if you're burnt out. You're no use to anyone if you are spread too thin. You're no use to anyone if you are over, you know what I mean? Like overexerting your
Mhm.
energy, and then being having to be taken out of the game
Mhm.
because of your health, burnout, or exhaustion. So that, as much as changing the world is such a beautiful reason to exist,
Mhm.
beautiful to contribute to life's, society's problems, and being a solution oriented person for that, taking care of yourself,
Mhm.
mind, and soul is so important, so that, like, your enoughness is actually like that part of knowing where that limit is, the boundary is, and being content with what you have the capacity for, is more than enough in what you can give the world. And we want healthy people that are impact and change makers to exist, not burnt out, right? It's such a waste, in my opinion, when I see that happen. I see that a lot because I work with nonprofit people quite often. It's like those people could have done so much more, but they had to be taken out of the game in a lot of ways to heal and repair, because we overexert. And also the world just expects it from givers,
Mhm.
so, and that is the biggest gift you can give as an impact maker.
Oof. So good, Lydia. That was money. That was money. I know. I need to hear that. I'm sure so many people listening. So thank you. Thank you for your time and your wisdom and your story. And man, I'll just say, everybody, go connect with her. You will not regret it.
Hi. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I always love to hear from people that have heard something that's meaningful to them, and just
Mm,
reach out. Like, I think LinkedIn's a great one that, people send me voicemails all the time. I love a voicemail, by the way. Send me a voicemail,
mm.
or text, whatever you're comfortable with. But it always means so much to me when someone lets me know what touched them, what they resonated with. Tell me more about your story as well. Yeah, please come in contact and connect with me.
Oh, I love that. That is incredible. You are beautiful inside and out. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day and connect with Lydia. We'll talk soon. All right. Bye bye.